Under the glow of his headlights, Detective Calvin Nash cradled an injured puppy with a blood-stained collar. The name etched into its tag would drag him back into the coldest, most haunting case of his career. The air smelled like burnt cedar and cold rot, the kind of autumn night that peeled old memories loose from the bones. Detective Calvin Nash had not meant to turn down Spangler Road. He was just driving the way a man sometimes does when there is nowhere left to go, and too much sitting behind him. The cruiser's tires whispered over cracked asphalt. No radio. No partner. Just the low hum of the heater and the occasional click of Jasper's leash swinging from the rearview mirror. Jasper had been gone 8 months. Died on duty, bullet to the ribs, saving Nash from a meth head with nothing to lose. They gave Jasper a medal. Nash gave him a plot of land behind the old oak tree at his cabin up in Boyd County. Never dug anything since. Then came the dog. A flicker at the edge of the beams. Not a deer, not a raccoon. Small. Ragged. A blur of tan fur and blood. He slammed the brakes and swerved. The cruiser skidded sideways with a sickening lurch. When the dust settled, there it was standing dead center in the high beams, shaking like a leaf nailed to a branch. The pup could not have been more than 4 months old. Mutt-blooded, probably part beagle, part something scrappier. Big ears, one eye crusted shut, a gash along its side, dried and dark. Around its neck hung a red leather collar, too big for its neck, too old for its age. Nash stepped out, slow and crouched. "Hey there, buddy," he said, voice low and steady. "You alone?" The pup did not bolt. That surprised him. It limped forward, then sat down like it had nowhere else in the world to go. That is when he saw the tag. It was oval-shaped, worn smooth at the edges. The name was scratched in with something sharp. Not printed. Mayor. He froze. Maya Garrison. 7 years ago, 10 years old. Vanished walking home from choir practice in Garrison, Kentucky. No witnesses. No suspects. Just a pink bicycle found near the old train yard and a case that still lived in the bottom drawer of his desk. Nash scooped up the pup and felt it tremble against his chest. Up close, he saw the collar was stiff with dried blood. Not the dog's. Not all of it. He looked back down the road. No houses nearby. Just woods. Then hills. Then nothing. A new chill settled into his chest. The kind that had nothing to do with the wind. He brought the pup home, cleaned her wound, fed her bits of boiled chicken. She did not whine. Didn't he bark? Just stared with that one good eye like she would already seen everything and did not care for most of it. He left her curled in a towel on Jasper's old dog bed and poured himself 2 fingers of rye. Maya Garrison. The name echoed like a prayer that never found its God. He had not worked her case directly. It would have been assigned to a guy named Sheridan back when Nash was still wet behind the ears. But everyone in the department had rid the file. Blonde girl. Quiet. Talented pianist. Father off the grid. Mother in rehab. Maya had been living with her aunt on East Fairview. That is where she disappeared from. He still remembered the photo, her hand resting on a piano key. Mid-laugh. The way her head tilted like she heard a joke no one else got. He poured another drink and opened his laptop. Maya's photo was still up on the department's cold case page. Same laugh. Same tilt. Same collar. It was right there in the photo. Red leather. Oval tag. He zoomed in, heart thudding like a war drum. Identical. The next morning, he brought the pup to the vet on South Franklin. Paid cash. Give no name. She is lucky, the vet said, stitching her up. Whatever got her missed anything vital. Strange thing, though. What? This collar. It does not belong to her. Way too big. And it is worn like it has been through hell. She is not old enough to be worn it long. Nash nodded. Can I keep it? The vet shrugged. Suit yourself. Back at the cruiser, he slipped the collar into a plastic evidence bag and stared at it. A kid does not vanish into thin air, not in Garrison, not with no trace, unless someone knew how to hide her, unless she did not want to be found. That night, Nash returned to Spangler Road. He parked where he would nearly hit the dog and got out. Flashlight in hand, it was colder now. Quieter, even the owls seemed to hold their breath. He combed the roadside first, then the woods. Found nothing but beer cans and broken branches. But the pup, he had not named her yet. She kept sniffing the air. Tail low. Ears alert. Then she barked once. Sharp and clear. Nash turned, followed her gaze. Beyond the ditch, hidden under a curtain of thorn bush, sat an old gravel path. Overgrown. Forgotten. The flashlight caught a glint. Rusty hinges. A wrought iron gate, half buried in leaves. Beyond it, a stone path winding uphill, toward something dark. Something tall. A steeple. The old Westervan church. Abandoned since the flood of '98. And as the wind shifted, Nash smelled something faint but familiar. Dust, decay, and the trace of a girl's perfume. Part two, the gate and the girl. The hinges groaned like an old man waking from a bitter dream. Nash pushed the gate open, one hand on his flashlight, the other resting near his sidearm. The pup followed, close to his heel. She did not bark again, just sniffed the air like she knew the way. The gravel crunched under his boots. Moonlight spilled through bare branches overhead, patching the path in silver. The wind stirred, bringing with it the faintest sound. A creak, then a thud, then silence again. Westervan Church stood crooked against the hillside, its bell tower leaning like a drunk sailor. Ivy climbed the stones like it wanted to drag the whole thing back to the dirt. The windows were long gone, just jagged teeth of glass in empty sockets. Nash approached the front doors. Oak, split down the center. He pressed a palm against them. Cold. They did not budge. But the side door, half covered in vines, gave way with a sigh. Inside smelled of mildew, soot, and something worse, something human. Maybe too human. He moved slow, flashlight casting long shadows across rotted pews and fractured beams. The pulpit lay collapsed, as if the last sermon had crushed it. The pup stopped, whimpered once, then padded to the corner. There, beneath an old church banner, was a trapdoor. Nash's chest tightened. He knelt, brushed aside the dust and the faded hem of cloth. The padlock was rusted, but not broken. Recently used. Grease still clung to the hasp. He drew a breath, stepped back, and pulled the pry bar from his belt. One crack. The lock popped like a knuckle. He opened the trapdoor. Darkness stared back. The stairs moaned with every step. The flashlight beam jittered down the corridor, catching stone walls slick with damp. A small generator buzzed somewhere below, faint and failing. The pup refused to come farther. She sat at the top step, watching. Nash descended alone. At the bottom, the hallway split in two. One end led to a half-flooded boiler room. The other, to a door, closed, painted pink once, now chipped to bone. He raised his light. Taped to the door was a photograph, curled at the corners. A girl, 10 years old. Head tilted, caught mid-laugh. Maya Garrison. The same photo from the cold case file, but this one had a note beneath it. Do not open unless you mean it. He stood there, heart hammering like it was trying to break out of his ribs. Then, with the slowest hand he would ever moved, he turned the knob. The door creaked open. The light from his flashlight hit pale walls lined with children's drawings. Rainbows. Flowers. A piano drawn in shaky crane strokes. In the far corner, huddled beneath a thin blanket, sat a girl. Older now. Gaunt. Eyes sunken but alert. She blinked, squinting against the light. Her voice cracked the air like dry paper. Did he send you? Nash stepped in. Who? She did not answer. Are you Maya? He asked. She flinched, then nodded once. My name's Skull Nash, he said, gently. I am here to help. She stared at him, then at the puppy now whining at the top of the stairs. I told her not to leave. Maya whispered. She snuck out when he forgot to lock the door. I did not think she would come back. Nash radioed it in. Backup, imps. The works. But he stayed with her until they arrived, watching the way her hands trembled around a cup of water he found in the corner kitchenette. There was a locket around her neck, gold, faded. She kept touching it, fingering the clasp like a worry stone. What is in there? He asked, careful not to push. She opened it. Inside was a piece of sheet music, folded impossibly small, the first notes of Claire de Lune. My mom used to play it. She whispered. I kept it for when I forgot her voice. The words landed heavy, heavy in a way Nash had not felt since Jasper died. Outside, sirens rose in the distance, still far enough to feel unreal. Maya looked at him. You are not like him. Nash said, I'm not. She stared a while longer, then said, she brought you, did not she? The pup. She nodded. She is smart. Knew I could not do it alone. As the sirens got closer, Maya reached for Nash's hand. It was thin, collused in strange places, scarred near the wrist. I do not want to go to a hospital. She said, you need care. I know, but not lights. Not too many people. Not yet. He nodded. We will figure it out. She gripped his hand tighter. Outside, Footsteps thundered on broken stone. Inside, Cole Nash closed his eyes and felt something crack open in his chest. Not grief, not yet hope, but maybe the fragile beginning of both. Before we begin part 3, take a moment to subscribe, like the video, and share your thoughts about the two stories. It may seem like a small gesture, but it truly helps keep these timeless tales alive. This story still has a long way to go, so if you do not have time to watch it all now, do not forget to save it and come back whenever you are ready. Part 3, Ashes and Embers. Maya did not flinch when the Emps came. She just let go of Nash's hand, slow and deliberate, like she knew she had to. But her eyes found his again before they wheeled her out. And what he saw in them was not fear. It was the question, what happens now? The church stood silent again once the last engine pulled away. All that was left were the ashes of what had nearly been a grave, and the man who could not quite leave it behind. Nash stayed a while longer, flashlight off now, sitting on the crumbling front steps. The puppy lay curled beside him, chin on his boot. Wind rustled through the broken steeple above. He looked up and wondered if God had ever listened to anything in that place. Probably not. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the evidence bag with the collar. It was stiff and dark in the seams. That name Maya still visible in scratched lettering. He turned it over and over in his hands. You found her, he whispered to the pup. Damn if I know how, but you found her. The pup thumped her tail once, a lazy little drumbeat against the cold stone step. Later that night, Nash drove back to the station. The roads were empty, the kind of quiet that feels too big. He parked in the rear lot and sat there, the cruiser humming under him, headlights casting long shadows on the brick wall ahead. Then he reached over to the glove box, pulled out a file. Maya Garrison missing juvenile open unresolved. He opened it slowly, the familiar pages. The photo, the map sketches, interview transcripts. Then, near the back, he found something he had not remembered, a photocopy of a music competition flyer. Maya Garrison, finalist, Young Artists of a Palakia Piano Recital. October 2017. Garrison Civic Hall. A blue ballpoint note had been scribbled across the top. Did she make it there? No answer had ever been written. Nash stared at it. Made it. She must be tried. The next morning, Nash drove up to the hospital in Ashland. Maya was in a special wing, quiet. Low traffic. Trauma-informed care. They called it gentle routines. Soft lights. Staff who did not ask too many questions too soon. When he walked in, the nurse at the desk looked up. She is awake, the nurse said. Said she was hoping for someone. Nash raised an eyebrow. Who? The nurse smiled, said I would know when I saw him. Maya was sitting up when he entered, wrapped in a sweater 2 sizes too big, and holding a cup of tea she did not drink. The room was filled with late morning light. Dust specks danced in the sunbeam that crossed her lap. The puppy, freshly bathed and bandaged, sat on the foot of her bed, tail wagging softly. They let me keep her here for now, Maya said. Nash sat in the armchair near the window. No name for her yet. I thought I would wait. For what? For you to help me name her. Nash let out a breath, almost a laugh. You found her, she said. She found me. Seems fair. He looked at the little dog. She blinked at him with that one good eye. "How about Ember?" he said. Tiny, but still burning. Maya tilted her head, then smiled. "Ember?" she said. "Yeah, that is her." They did not talk about the basement. Not yet. But she told him bits and pieces around the edges, how she learned to stay quiet when footsteps came, how she played piano in her head to fall asleep, how Ember had shown up one night, a scrawny stray with a cut on her paw, whimpering at the edge of the trapdoor. She was the first thing that ever came in. Maya said. Everything else only took things out. Nash did not press. He did not have to. There'd be time for that later, for courtrooms and therapists, and piecing together the long, cruel silence between 10 years old and 17. But not today. Today, he sat by the window, watching the girl pet the dog that saved her. And in the pocket of his coat, the red collar grew warm against his side. That night, Nash returned to his cabin in Boyd County. He parked, got out, and stood for a long time beneath the oak tree where Jasper was buried. The breeze carried the scent of wood smoke and wet leaves. He crouched, brushed pine needles from the small stone marker. "Good work, partner," he said. Then he stood, wiped his hands, and turned toward the porch. Inside, the fire was already lit, and this time, when he poured 2 glasses of rye, he set one down next to the empty leash on the mantel. Part for a silence that doesn't fade. The morning came slow, like it did not want to wake. Nash sat at his kitchen table, coffee gone cold, Ember curled at his feet. The cabin was quiet except for the tick of the clock and the occasional creak of the rafters adjusting to the sun. He kept looking at the phone. Waiting? There was a weight in his chest that coffee could not burn through. The kind that settles after the adrenaline wears off, after the girl is safe, after the sirens fade and the questions begin. She was alive, but the story was not over, not even close. His phone finally buzzed just after 9. Sheridan. He had not heard from the old detective in years. Sheridan had retired 3 summers back and taken up fishing full-time. He rarely called, and never early. Nash answered. "You saw?" "Goddamn right I did," Sheridan said. Turned on the news expecting the usual bloodbath, and there she was. Maya Garrison. Alive. Nash rubbed a hand over his face. "I did not even think you would still be paying attention. I do not sleep like I used to. Some cases hang around." There was a pause. Then Sheridan said, "Quieter. She looks like her mother." Even now. Nash did not answer. "You want to know something strange?" Sheridan continued. The church. West Avon. We combed that area the first month she disappeared. Dogs did not hit on anything. Place looked locked up. She was not there the whole time. Nash said, "That much I am sure of. Think she was moved. I think whoever had her knew what they were doing." Another pause, the kind that lets things settle deep. "You are going to keep digging, are not you?" Sheridan asked. "Would T know how to stop?" "Be careful. Nash, I have already buried one partner," he said, glancing down at Ember. Don't he plan on doing it again? That afternoon, Nash returned to the hospital. Maya was stronger, not just in color, but in the way she held herself back straighter. Eyes clearer. Still cautious, but something inside had clicked forward. She was playing piano on her lap again, silent keys. Invisible melody. Claire de Lune. Nash asked. She shook her head. Back. Prelude in C major. He nodded like he recognized it. He did not. Therapist came today. She said. Nice enough. Young. Soft voice. I told her about Ember. Not much else yet. You do not have to rush. I know. Nash sat down beside the bed. I have been looking into something. Her hands stopped playing. You said the man who kept you, he was not always in the room. Never was. She said. There was a speaker, sometimes a camera, a vent I think he spoke through. Ever see his face? Ever hear a name? She hesitated, looked out the window. There was a voice I would hear sometimes. Not him. A woman's? Softer, like a lullaby. I think she was the one who left me books. Food sometimes. She whispered a name once when she thought I was asleep. What name? Micah? Nash wrote it down in his notepad. Micah? You think that was his name? I think it was the name she feared. Back at the station. Nash dug. Micah? Kentucky. Garrison. Known associates. Parole records. Religious affiliations, anything that might connect to a place like Westervan. He cross-referenced old case files, searched through local property transfers, found the church had passed through 3 shell elks after 2002. One had a PO box in Knoxville. He hit a dead end there, but then he went back to Mayer school records. And there it was. Micah Garrison, born 1984. Mayer's father, listed as missing since 2011. No forwarding address, no known relatives. A history of radical religious behavior noted in a single custody dispute file from when Mayer was 5. That was the year her mother took her and fled. To Garrison. Nash leaned back in his chair. Pulse rising. Could it be that simple? Micah Garrison had disappeared. Maya had disappeared. Both linked to that church, to that collar, to that voice she still heard in her sleep. And now she was found. Not dead, not broken beyond repair, but still carrying the name of the man who may have never left. He returned to the cabin late that night. Ember met him at the door with a low, happy bark. Her side was healing, and her limp had faded to a subtle hitch. He gave her a biscuit, poured himself a glass of water, and sat on the back porch staring at the stars. Somewhere out there, Micah Garrison might still be watching. Still hiding. Still listening. And Nash knew now what he would known the second that Puppy stepped into his headlights. This was not over, and it would not be until every name was spoken aloud, even the ones people prayed to forget. Part 5, where the silence leads. The next time Nash visited the hospital, Maya was sitting at the window with a small keyboard across her lap, a real one. This time, plastic keys. Tinny sound. Powered by double the batteries. She did not notice him at first. She was focused, shoulders swaying slightly as she played a broken, careful tune. The notes were soft, sometimes wrong, but it was music. "You are improving," Nash said quietly. She glanced over, smiled faintly. "I used to dream I could still play, in the dark. It was the only thing that did not scare me." Nash nodded. "You are remembering." "I am trying." She looked better. Not healed. That was not the right word. But grounded. Like someone who started to believe the world above ground was real. She reached down and scratched Ember behind the ears. "She does not like when I play too loud." Maya said, "I think she has had too much noise in her life." Nash felt the weight of those words. So had Maya. He pulled a chair beside the bed, his notebook already in hand. "I need to ask about your father," he said. Maya's fingers froze on the keyboard. "I thought he was dead. So did a lot of people. But the name Micah, it is connected to you, and to the church." She did not respond at first. Then, "He used to say God spoke to him, said the world was too loud and dirty for a girl like me. He took you to protect you." That is what he believed. Nash let the silence stretch. Let her fill it. "I was 5 when we ran." Maya said, "Mom and me, we stayed in shelters. Then with Aunt Ray, I thought he was gone." "What do you remember about him?" She looked at her hands, thin and pale against the black and white keys. "He never hit me. Not once. But he talked like every word came from thunder. Like if you did not listen, the ground would split." Nash scribbled notes. "He had a ring," she added suddenly, "big and heavy. Like a man's college ring, but no school name, just a symbol." "What kind of symbol?" "A cross, inside a triangle." That stopped him. He would seen that symbol before. Not in the files, in real life. A burned-out compound off Route 31, a fire in 09. They called themselves the Sons of Solace. Fringe cult. Preached purification and rebirth through silence. Most members died in the blaze, but the founder was never found. Micah Garrison. Nash did not go back to the station that night. He drove, past the edge of town, past the hills that divided memory from rumor. He parked where the gravel met ash. The old compound was still marked off by rusted no trespassing signs and a sagging wire fence. He walked the perimeter, flashlight low, gun holstered but ready. What was left of the main house was a skeletal frame, blackened timbers reaching like ribs to the stars. Nature had taken over. Ivy threading through the rot. Animals burrowing beneath the stone foundation. He found a cracked stone step buried under moss, and there, barely visible in the beam of his light, was a carved symbol. A triangle. Inside it, a cross. Mike had been here. Maybe he would started here, but something told Nash he had not stayed. The next, Nash returned to the hospital. He brought an old photo with him, an archival shot from the Sons of Solace file. It showed 3 men and women standing outside the compound. Faces blurry. One wore a heavy ring on his right hand. He showed it to Maya. She stared at it for a long time. Then, Slowly, she tapped her finger on the face of the man on the left. That is him. Micah Garrison. Not a ghost, not a myth. A man who once believed silence could save a child. And maybe still believed it. Later that evening, Nash stood outside on the hospital lawn while Maya slept. Ember sniffed the grass, then trotted back and sat at his feet. He looked at her. "You knew," he said. "Didn't you?" The pup blinked. "Jasper would be liked you." He reached down, scratched behind her ears, and for the first time, she licked his wrist. Not just thanks. Something else. Like understanding. Like memory. The wind picked up, cold and full of promise. And somewhere beyond the hills, in a cabin or cave or crypt, Micah Garrison might still be listening. But so was Cole Nash. And this time, he was not listening alone. Part 6. The sound beneath the silence. Maya did not sleep well. The nurses said she woke up twice screaming, once thrashing so hard they had to sedate her. When Nash arrived the next morning, she was curled up in the hospital bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling like she did not trust the walls. Ember sat protectively on the bed beside her, head resting on Maya's hip. "She has been like this since 4. The nurse whispered, "Won't he talk to anyone but you?" Nash nodded. He stepped inside and pulled the chair close. "Kid," he said softly. Maya did not look at him, but her hand reached out and rested lightly on Ember's back. "He sang last night," she whispered. "In my dream. I heard him in the vents again." Nash leaned forward, elbows on knees. "What did he sing?" "A hymn. One he made me learn. Let all mortal flesh keep silence." He said it was about holiness, about not interrupting God with noise. Her voice quivered. "I was not even allowed to cry. If I cried, he would say I was polluting the silence." Nash clenched his fists. Let the storm inside settle before he spoke. "Maya," he said gently, "you do not have to go back there. Not in your mind. Not ever again. But I am back there," she said, "every time I close my eyes." Then she turned toward him, for the first time that morning. "But maybe if I go there on purpose," she said, "I can remember things I need to forget." Nash did not quite know how to answer that, but he nodded. Because she was right. That afternoon, they met with Albright, the trauma specialist assigned to Maya's care. She was older, with soft eyes and a firm, quiet voice. The kind of woman who could hold a silence without fearing it. "She is a fighter," Albright said, once Maya had returned to her room. "But she has layered her memories in protection, like scar tissue. Peeling it back will hurt. She wants to try." Nash said, "She will need you. I am not her father. You are something." Albright said, "You were the first face she saw in the light." Back in the cabin that night, Nash poured a drink and laid out the maps. Micah Garrison had vanished once before. He would not be careless now. The Sons of Solace had owned property across 3 counties before they collapsed. One deed stood out, a parcel of land never properly reclaimed after the fire. 20 acres bordering an abandoned mine. No electricity. No address. No obvious use. just a gravel road and a long history of being overlooked. The next morning, Nash stood at the nurse's station with 2 black and white photographs. One of the land parcel, one of the church basement where Maya had been found. He slid them across the counter to her. "You do not have to look," he said, but she did. She stared at them for nearly a minute before pointing to the one with the property line. "That one feels wrong." "Wrong how?" "I do not know. Like something sharp is underneath it." Nash understood what she meant. Memory, buried too deep, does not rot. It waits. He secured a warrant by noon, drove out alone. Ember in the passenger seat, her first real ride since the night she stumbled into his headlights. The sky was heavy with clouds, the kind of grey that made the land feel stripped of time. He parked where the road gave up, hiked the last quarter mile through underbrush and silence, until he saw it. A shack. Half collapsed. No windows. Door chained. He moved slow, hand near his weapon. Listening. Then under the rustle of leaves, a sound. A voice. Faint. Male. Off-key. Singing, "Let all mortal flesh keep silence." Nash drew his gun, stepped forward. The song grew louder, but not clearer. Each note warbled. Uncertain, like the singer no longer knew if he was alone. Then silence. Complete. Nash reached the door. "Micah Garrison," he called out. "This is Detective Calvin Nash. Come out with your hands where I can see them." Nothing. Then a creak, slow and deliberate. The chain slid back, and the door opened. Inside stood a man with hollow cheeks and wild eyes, beard down to his collarbone, ring glinting on his right hand. But what froze Nash was not the face. It was the collar in his hand, a second red leather band, identical to Maya's, only this one read, Grace. Part 7 Grace and the Hollow Man. Micah Garrison did not speak right away. He just stood there in the doorway, holding the second collar like it was holy. No gun. No fight. Just that cracked-lipped smile and the shine of something broken behind his eyes. Nash kept his weapon level. "Drop it?" Micah looked at the collar, then at Nash. "This one never came back," he said softly. Nash stepped forward. "Grace. Who was she?" Micah blinked. "The quietest one." The shack smelled of old rain, mold, and something sterile like bleach soaked into the wood. Inside, there was a cot, rusted stove, and boxes lined like pews. Some were empty. One was full of dog collars. Red leather, all hand-marked, some with names scratched in. Hope, Mercy, Ruth, Eden, and one tagged with no name at all, just a carved cross. Nash's stomach twisted. "What the hell is this?" he asked. Micah sat slowly on the edge of the cot, hands in his lap. "Every child is a vessel," he murmured. "You either purify the noise, or you are swallowed by it." "Where?" Grace. "Gone. Dead." Micah did not answer, just looked down at the collar in his hands and started humming. The same damn hymn. Nash called it in. Backup was 20 minutes out, so he sat with Micah, gun still drawn, but pulse slowing. The man was not going anywhere. "Why Maya?" he asked. Micah tilted his head. "She was born hearing the music. I thought I could protect that." "You mean erase it?" A pause. Silence is not absence. It is presence without interruption. Maya was the only one who listened. She was a child. She was a miracle. Outside, Ember whined softly from the cruiser. Inside, Nash stared at the man who de-stolen a little girl's life and convinced himself it was salvation. "She remembers you," Nash said. Mike looked up. "She remembers the vent. The cold. The things she was not allowed to say. She remembers a woman. Someone who whispered your name when you were not listening." Micah's face darkened. "Nami. She helped. She betrayed the quiet. You hurt her. I removed her." The words landed like stones. And still Nash did not pull the trigger. Because Maya needed answers. And the dead do not talk. When the other officers arrived, Micah did not resist. He stepped outside as the cuffs went on, face turned to the sky, as if he expected light to fall down on him. Nash watched him get loaded into the cruiser, watched the shack empty out behind him, watched the names on the collars fade in the morning mist. Grace. Mercy. Hope. All the things Micah had tried to carve out. And all the things Maya had somehow kept. Back at the hospital, Nash did not go straight to Maya's room. He took Ember out for a walk, let her sniff the grass, the tree trunks, the breeze. When they reached the edge of the garden, she stopped, sat, looked up at him with that one good eye, and for a moment, Nash felt Jasper beside her, just a shimmer of presence in the space between wind and memory. He knelt, buried his face in her fur. "Good girl," he whispered. "You brought her home." When he stepped into Maya's room, she was sitting up, playing softly on the keyboard, a new tune slower, deeper, minor key. She stopped when she saw him. "Well?" she asked. Nash nodded. "We found him." She did not say anything right away. Just exhaled, like she had been holding that breath for years. Then, "He will try to explain it. You know, he will say it was not his fault, that he was saving me. He already has." She looked down. "I used to think he loved me, but then I realized love does not lock you underground." Nash stepped closer. "He won't hurt anyone again." May met his eyes. "But I still hear him sometimes," she said. "I know." He pulled something from his pocket. "The collar?" "Not Mayus. The other one. Grace." She took it gently, studied it, then whispered, "She was before me." I think she stopped listening. They sat in silence. Not the kind Micah worshipped, but the kind two people earn after telling the truth. "I want to testify," Maya said. "When the trial comes, I want to say it in front of him." "You sure? I need to be louder than he was?" Nash nodded slowly. "You will be. Part 8 louder than the silence." The courthouse in Garrison had not changed much in 20 years. Same warped flag above the steps. Same chipped concrete benches out front. Nash stood near the doors with Maya beside him, smaller now in her too big coat, hair pinned back, the faintest tremble in her fingers, but her eyes were clear, determined. "I thought I would feel scared," she said. "You do not. I feel seen. That is worse. And better." Nash nodded. There is a difference between being watched and being heard. She exhaled. "Today I get heard." They did not put her on the stand that morning, just pretrial statements. Arraignment. Paperwork that made monsters feel small. But she sat through all of it, back straight, hands folded, Ember at her feet like a sentinel in training. Micah was brought in cuffed and grey, still humming. But this time, Maya did not flinch. When he passed her in the aisle, he looked at her once. She did not look away. She did not even blink. Outside, reporters circled. A few recognized Nash, but most were drawn to the girl with the quiet fire in her eyes and the strange little dog with the crooked walk. "Do you want to speak to them?" Nash asked her quietly. Maya shook her head. "Not yet. My story does not belong to strangers. Not until I decide it does." He respected that. She would earn every inch of control. Later that afternoon, they sat at the picnic table behind the hospital. The sun came out for the first time in days, and the light felt honest. Maya was quiet for a while, picking at the edge of her sleeve. "Do you ever miss him?" she asked suddenly. "Who?" "Your partner, the one before Ember." Nash looked down at the scar on his left wrist, the one Jasper's leash used to rub Raw during long shifts. "Every day. What was he like?" Nash smiled. Too smart for his own good. Would he heal unless it suited him? Hated thunder. Loved peanut butter. Once found a missing boy by sniffing out a candy wrapper 2 counties over. Maya laughed. Soft. "Real. Did you get to say goodbye?" Nash said, "But he died doing his job. He died saving me." Maya reached out and touched Ember's head. "I think Ember saved me. But she did not die for it. She lived for it. That landed harder than she knew. Or maybe she did know." That night, Nash walked the quiet road to the old oak behind his cabin. Jasper's stone was damp with fresh rain. Nash crouched beside it and placed a dog tag at its base. "Not Jasper's. Grace. She did not make it," he said aloud, "but Maya did. And she is going to carry the rest of them in her voice." He stood up, wiped the dirt from his jeans, then added, quietly, "Thanks for guiding her, however you did it." Back in the cabin, Ember curled in her usual spot. Nash poured a cup of coffee instead of rye, sat by the fire and opened May's file not to study it, but to finally close it. He turned to the last page, added one note. Located, alive, recovered. Then, with a pen that felt heavier than it should, he drew a single line under her name. Justice was not always a verdict. Sometimes it was a girl playing piano again. The next morning, Maya called. "I'm ready," she said. "For what?" "To tell the world what he did, but on my terms. Just once. Then I move forward. You want help writing it?" She said, but I want you sitting beside me when I say it. They met a week later at the community center, a small gathering, no cameras. Just survivors. Families, officers, and one schoolteacher who used to give Maya rides home. She stepped up to the microphone, trembled, then breathed, and the girl who once spoke only in silence, sang, not with music, with words that rang out, steady and sharp. I was taken by someone who thought silence could protect me. He said noise was evil, that my voice was a weapon, but I survived because I did not let go of sound. Even when I had nothing left, I remembered the music, and I came back louder than he ever imagined. When she stepped down, Ember met her with a happy bark. Nash did too, though his was just a quiet smile and a hand on her shoulder. You did it, he said. I said it. She corrected. The doing is still happening. Part 9, the names we carry. The day after her speech, Maya slept for 13 hours. The body does that. After long silence it collapses when the noise is finally allowed to rise. Nash did not call. He did not stop by the hospital. He knew when to give a person space to breathe. But he did leave something at the front desk. A notebook. Leather-bound, the cover embossed with a treble clef. Inside, on the first page, he would written, "For the songs you have not played yet." 3 days later, she called him. Her voice was steady. "I want to go back," she said, "to the church." The graveyard, where Jasper is. Nash paused, then said, "I will drive." They arrived just before sunset. The sky was streaked with gold and lilac, the air thick with the scent of honeysuckle and rain-soaked bark. Maya stepped lightly across the grass, Ember trotting beside her. Nash kept a quiet distance behind them, hands in his jacket pockets. When she reached the stone beneath the old oak, she knelt, ran her fingers over the carved name. Jasper, K9 officer, faithful until the end. "I never had a grave for myself," she said softly. "Not even a room with my name on it. You have one now." Nash said, "I do not want a grave. I want a garden." He looked at her. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small cloth pouch. She untied it and scattered seeds across the soil. "Wildflowers," she said, "the kind that grow without needing much." That evening, they sat on the porch at Nash's cabin, the fire pit crackling and Ember curled between them. Maya held a warm mug in both hands. "I have been thinking," she said, "about names." "Yeah." She nodded. Grace, Mercy, Hope, all the collars. I think they were real. Nash said nothing. "I do not think I was the first. I think I was just the one who survived long enough to leave." "That is possible," he said. "I want to remember them. Not just for me. For them." He reached down beside the chair and handed her a box. Inside were the collars, cleaned, catalogued, wrapped in cloth, each one labeled with a date, a location, a single word. She touched them like holy relics. "Let us build something," she said. Over the next few weeks, they worked quietly, behind the church, where the grass had grown tall and the air still held echoes. Nash and Maya cleared space. They erected a simple wooden post and hammered into it a board with hand-carved letters. The Garden of Names, for the voices no one heard in time. They strung the collars along the post, in neat rows, like wind chimes that never made a sound, and they planted the wildflower seeds beneath them. Maya's idea. Nash just brought the water and the shovel. When the first sprouts pushed through the soil, Maya came alone. She sat by the flowers for hours, Ember at her feet. Nash watched from a distance. Didn't he intrude? Didn't he need to? Some stories you can help write, you can only witness their blooming. That night, back at the cabin, Nash pulled a small wooden box from the closet. Inside was Jasper's badge. He had not looked at it in months. He set it on the mantel beside a photo Jasper in uniform. Ears up, eyes sharp. Then he added a new one. Maya, seated at the piano in the community center, her fingers caught in midair, frozen on a rising chord. He stepped back and looked at the two of them side by side. The dog who gave his life, the girl who reclaimed hers, and in the warm silence that followed, he whispered, "Justice is not the end of a case." He looked down at Ember. "It is the start of something new." Part 10. What remains after the silence. Spring came late to Boyd County that year. The mornings were still cool, the nights still thick with mist. But the wildflowers in the Garden of Names bloomed anyway early. Eager, stubborn. Maya visited every Sunday. She watered the soil, read aloud from her notebook, and sat with Ember beneath the tall pines behind the old West Heaven church. Nash joined her sometimes. Other times, he watched from the cruiser, letting her have the stillness she would earn. The collars swayed in the breeze like memory made visible, and the names, those single words carved by a man trying to erase what he never understood, had become something new. Not epitaphs. Testaments. On one of those quiet Sundays, Maya turned to Nash as they walked back to the car. "Do you think they are at peace?" she asked. "The others?" Nash looked at her, then at the wind-chimed collars dancing behind them. "I do not know," he said honestly, "but I think you are." She nodded. "Almost." Then she added, with the faintest smile, "Ask me again in 10 years. She moved in with her aunt a month later, started online school, signed up for piano lessons with a retired teacher who played too fast and drank too much coffee. Need someone who does not coddle. Maya told Nash, "I am not a broken thing." "You never were," he said. But the truth was, he had been, for a long time. Jasper's leash still hung from the rearview mirror of Nash's cruiser, but it no longer felt like a weight. It felt like a thread, one that had led him from grief to grace, one that had brought Ember into his life. She was different from Jasper, smaller, more cautious, full of wounded wisdom, but in her own way, just as brave. He brought her to the station twice a week now. The other officers called her the little detective. She would sniff out snacks in lockers, curl up under his desk during paperwork, and nudge his hand whenever his mind wandered too far into the past. "Partner," he whispered to her one night. She thumped her tail once, like she understood. The trial came and went. Micah Garrison pled guilty to kidnapping. Unlawful confinement. Psychological abuse. The state dropped the murder charge for lack of evidence on Grace and the others. But Maya took the stand anyway, and when she told her story, she did not cry, she did not shout, she simply spoke, and the courtroom held its breath, because when you survive a cage built from silence, the first sound you make is holy. One evening in early June, Maya stood beside Nash on the hill behind the cabin, watching the fireflies blink to life across the darkening field. "He never took away who I was," she said. Nash replied, "He just tried to drown it." She looked up at him, serious. "Do you think people come back from things like that? Really come back?" He thought for a moment, then said, "I think sometimes we do not come back. We come through." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a new collar. Red leather, stitched edges, a small metal tag. She handed it to Nash. It read, "Maya. Found." He took it slowly, turning it over in his hand. "No one else needs to wear that kind," she said, "but I wanted to leave one more behind. For the garden?" She nodded. They walked down the hill together, Ember trotting ahead, tail high, and when they reached the post, Maya hung the collar at the very center. The wind picked up. The collars sang softly. Not just a song the world had waited too long to hear.